Hello everybody and thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host Peter aka LPD Dubuque, and this week it's going to be a very interesting week because I'm going to start rolling out on the topics that a lot of people have requested for me to cover for this year. And the big resounding one that kept coming up is a topic I know a lot of people are probably going to dismiss me from very early on, but please rest assured it is going to be a good episode, and I do recommend that you listen to it because I do have input that is quality. Okay, it does have weight, it does have merit in this topic. Okay, of course, what is the topic I'm going to be covering is sportsmanship. This is something a lot of newcomers have been asking me to do, and I can totally understand why, because to a lot of people it's kind of like a given that you should know what sportsmanship is and how you're supposed to conduct yourself in competitions. However, I guess some people actually need to be explained a little bit further, which is totally fine. I will totally do my best to help you guys out. Now, I know a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes at me already because you're going, oh god, it's a casual glover who's trying to weigh in on the competition format and the competitive environment when he's never been in a competitive environment before in gloving. While that may be true that I have never been in an official sanctioned gloving tournament, I do have experience in the competitive environment. As my listeners do know that I am a very avid Magic the Gathering player, I do have plenty of experience in the competitive environment of that, all the way up to states, almost getting into nationals. And of course, I have played plenty of Super Smash Bros., the original on the 64 tournaments as well, when I was about 10. So I do have experience in competition. It's not gloving competition, but it is competition nonetheless. Okay? And if you're sitting there rolling your eyes at me thinking that my experience with Magic and Super Smash Bros. Does not quantify towards gloving competitions, you are completely biased on yourself and you need to open your eyes. Okay? Here's the thing. When it comes to my experience in the competitive environment, whether it be Magic or Super Smash Bros. Or even gloving itself, there is still a lot of things that people do the same way. Okay? So please do not turn off my episode just because I never been in an official gloving competition. Therefore, my words do not have any merit towards the competition environment when I do have experience in a competitive environment. Okay? Thank you so much. So first things first, let's just get this out of the way because I always like starting from the very beginning on topics like this. What is sportsmanship? Well, the definition of sportsmanship, since, it's always good to actually know what the actual definition is so people can actually work off of something. The definition is fair and generous behavior or treatment to others, especially in a sporting event or contest. Okay, so what does that exactly mean? Being fair and generous behavior is very, very simple. Words that come into mind are things like professionalism, courtesy, respect. These are the words that come into play when it comes to that definition. Okay, if you really think about it, now I know some people are probably gonna be like, okay, you might be blowing this out of proportion, but this is some things that people do want to see gloving go to. We want to get to this echelon where we're very highly respected and that people recognize it to a very strong degree. You know what I mean? So professionalism is a very huge thing when it comes to the competitive environment. I've seen some pretty bad eggs get really hammed over certain things and have reactions that were completely out there, is a lack of a better term or word that I can think of at the time. So those are the things that I definitely want you guys to think of when it comes to your good sportsmanship. Okay, good sportsmanship is somebody who's very professional at what they're doing. They hold themselves in a very professional manner. They do not let certain emotions get in the way of things, and they do not let their judgment get clouded by said emotions in a high emotional state. Now, a couple of things I do want to kind of explain so people can understand. When it comes to certain people and acting the way that they do, the main reason is what's at stake. Okay? When it comes to competitions, there's usually something at stake, right? And it's not always bragging rights. There's always a prize pool of some sort. There's some type of reward for all the effort that somebody puts into it, right? So when it comes to people and their perception of what's at stake, that can tend to have that tends to inflate how they are in terms of their sportsmanship. Now, being extremely professional, in my opinion, is, this is just me, but you don't have to, but in my opinion, the restraints of profanity is one major thing I would always like to see. And it's not this, if you use so many swear words, you just don't have a very good vocabulary, blah, 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 blah thing. It's just, there are times and places where things are called for, and when you're trying to be in a competitive environment and you're not doing anything crazy, it does kind of look bad on us when we're sitting there, in lack of a better word, swearing like a sailor. Now granted, I have prior military experience, so I know firsthand I have tendencies of doing that, but I try not to even do it on an episode because I don't want to bog down my episode with so many profanities. That's not how I'm going to get my point across. How I get my point across is actually explaining and actually breaking things down. So now you can blow that off if you want. That's totally fine. It's just something that I personally think helps the community out even more. Because some people can just take words completely in the wrong context, and that's just something that you shouldn't even try bothering with, right? Now, when it also comes to courtesy, is just, being pretty much respectful in the same manner. You just, lack of a better phrase, just don't cause trouble, right? With that being in mind, that's pretty much how good sportsmanship is supposed to be, just being extremely professional, courteous, and respectful to everybody around you, especially when it comes to your judges and your tournament organizers. You definitely gotta be respectful to them because they put in a lot of work and they're using a lot of their time to be there for that competition, like you have been. So please do not sit there and think that they did not put enough time and effort into what they're doing to think that you have more stuff going on for you, okay? It's something I have heard from a lot of glovers that I've talked to when they've been in competitions, is that a lot of people just don't take into account what the judges are going through, what the tournament organizers are going through, whoever the vendors hosting the place is. You got to take into account what they're doing to provide this competition for you. Okay, so always bring yourself into a perspective of understanding everyone around you and what they're going through as well. Okay, now what are some examples of bad sportsmanship? Well, man, how many examples can I think of right now that outside of the gloving community that would be hilarious to talk about? Okay, so the first example I know a lot of people talk about is egotistical. Okay, being extremely egotistical about your gloving ability, your clout in the community, the equipment you're using. It could be anything that you can gloat yourself over, is I know a lot of people don't like. Now, I can even tell you from my own experience, especially in like the Magic the Gathering community, there's quite a few spikes, which if you don't know what a spike is a competitive player. There are nicknames in this community. Johnnies are people who like playing with combos. Timmies are people who like playing with big dumb beater creatures. And then you have spikes, which are tournament players, okay? With that being said, I know a lot of people have told me that they've seen a lot of people do that, and I've seen my fair share of that stuff in my time during a lot of other competitions, but it is what it is, and sometimes there's just people that let that happen, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Now, another thing that I consider very bad sportsmanship is some people call this sore losering. I tend to refer to it as overly self-defeating. When and I've seen this plenty of times, when somebody loses in a competition and they just really beat themselves over the head with it, I don't get me wrong, I totally understand. You spend weeks, maybe months practicing, training up for this event, and you come up short. I totally get it. Here's something I will explain to you. There have been times where I've studied and play tested for weeks and weeks on end with Magic the Gathering on a deck for a certain format. I think it was standard at the time. I don't even remember. It's been so long. Again, it was States. It's a long time ago. Where I've practiced and play tested and studied. I studied the metagame. I had everything down to a T, and I still came out 3-5. Okay. I totally get it. I totally understand where you put in all this effort and you still somehow come up short. It is what it is. That do happen. Now granted, I will certainly say that gloving doesn't have that level of variance like Magic the Gathering does, or even Super Smash Brothers does, but I totally get where people come from when they put in all this work and all of a sudden they come up short and they feel like they have, they didn't get the recognition that they deserve for the amount of effort that they put into it. Now, I totally understand. However, these are judges and these are tournament organizers. They have these rules and paradigms that they have to follow. And not only that, when it comes to them judging, I'm not going to sit here and talk about how art is subjective and try to go down that whole road. That's just not going to work for us, right? But they do have a level of reputation of being a judge, and they know what they are looking for. So please do keep that in mind, that you shouldn't feel like the judges are biased. Now, I know that's been a major controversy in the community, and I'm not going to get into it this episode because that's not part of the episode. But I do understand where people are coming from, and I'm just not going to weigh in on that right now. Now, my personal one that I just don't really like seeing at all, and to me it's just such an oxymoronic reaction to the whole thing, is somebody being a sore winner. Now, I can understand like when it came to Magic the Gathering, somebody being a sore winner when it's just like, yeah, my opponent got mana screwed both games and I just completely demolished him. That's not even a game. That's what Magic the Gathering community calls non-games, where one person is playing, the other person is not playing because of what is known as variance. Either they have too much mana, or they don't have enough mana, or something just doesn't line up where they just aren't able to play the game and they just sit there while the other person is just going ham on everything. I would certainly say that it wasn't a huge issue when it came to Super Smash Brothers, but then again, we are talking about the 64, and compared to how mechanics work in gaming now, it was very different back then. So that is what it is. I know a couple of people when I was in the Super Smash Brothers tournament stuff that people were kind of sore winners because they were like, well, I didn't hit them, the bomb woke up and hit them and blew them up and all that stuff. Like, crazy things. There are some ridiculous things I remember people saying when they won. And it's just like, well, I didn't really win. The bomb went off and blew them off the screen and I won that way. And that doesn't mean I really won. And it's just like, wait, hold on. That's not how the game works type deal, But when it came to Magic the Gathering, I can totally understand the whole non-game wins and being a sore winner over that, because it's just like you wanted to play a match. You actually wanted to have this back and forth battle between your opponent. Not, hey, I'm able to do whatever I want and you can't do anything because variance decided to frown upon you and say, hey, you don't get any lands for your game, or you have all these lands that you need, but you don't have anything to play them with, like that just tends to be how it is. Now, I haven't really seen this, but I've heard people who talked about people who won their match in a gloving competition and they didn't feel excited about it. They actually kind of felt more defeating of themselves because of it. Like, it's kind of strange to me that people are like that, but at the same time, I can understand just from my own experience outside of gloving how people are when they are sore winners. So, with those being said, how do you make yourself better at being a good sportsmanship? First things first, I'm going to tell you this right now. When it comes to competition and losing in a competition, I know it sucks, especially if you put money into it and there's a lot of stuff at stake. I get it. I know how it feels. I have played for $1,000 prize pool before. I have played for a $5,000 prize pool before. I have been there. I know the feeling of when something is at stake and you're trying to go for it. I totally get it. Now, I'm not saying that gloving competitions are having 5K, tournaments for it, which it would be great if they were, because that would be really cool, but that's just me. I would like to actually see bigger competition formats for gloving that actually have bigger prize pools, like a 64 one that, you get like $500, or, a 128 man competition where, $1,000 is on the line, stuff like that. I would like to see that happen, but that's just me. So one major thing I definitely want to tell people is do not take your losses personally, okay? Do not take it as a sign of your adequacy in the gloving format It is not an inadequacy of the judges or anything like that. When it comes to just taking a loss, the way that you're supposed to look at it is a learning experience. Okay, you lost. Why did you lose? How do you find out why you lost? Well, one of the best things I like to do is actually discuss your match with your opponent. Discuss what you liked from your opponent and find out what your opponent really liked from you. Ask them how they felt on certain things, what parts do you feel like you need to work on. And not only do you need your opponent to be telling you that, but you should also be telling your opponent what they're asking to help them out. It's one of those things that I love about competition so much, is when you actually have that time where you can actually talk to your opponent and actually just bullshit for a little while on, the competition. Like what are they liking so far about it? How do they feel about the competition right now? Who do they think is going to be really good? Stuff like that. But it also gives you that learning opportunity to also get an outside opinion of how you're doing. Another thing I do also want to stress is when you do start asking questions like that and they start pointing things out that you feel like are really good, do not, please do not take it personally. Don't take your losses personally. Do not take your criticism personally. These are things trying to help you become better. Okay? It's one of these things I've learned from the professor at Torvus Community College that I tend to use here as well. It's not about winning or losing. It is about becoming a better Glover, win or lose. Okay? Winning does not make you better. In my opinion, losing actually makes you better because it brings you back to the state of reality where, you're not this untouchable thing, like certain characters and stories like to do. I've look at the Bulgaria. That's all I'm going to say. You just don't take it personally. These are your opportunities to learn to get better, and that's the goal here, is to become better, winning or losing. Granted, yes, winning is always a good thing, but I always feel like you learn way more out of your losses than you do your wins. Okay, so another major thing I definitely want to stress, that when it comes to competitions and trying to actually become better with your sportsmanship, if you feel like you need to improve, is actually talk to the tournament organizers, talk to the judges, talk to the people who are running the competition, who's running the event. Because to me, if you actually look at from their perspective, it actually gives you a bigger understanding of how the competition works as a whole. Especially if you're talking to the judges who are watching you in the competition, asking them, how they felt about certain things, asking them about like why do they feel that you only scored this high on this part of the scorecard, things like that. That way you are getting the information to help improve better in terms of competition from the people who are running it. It is like it's a crazy idea that some people think, but it is something that works. It really does. Like, believe me, I even sat there and talked to judges in Magic the Gathering tournaments, at Super Smash Brothers tournaments, and I asked them so many questions about certain things, certain scenarios, and they were more than willing to talk to me about it. Okay, now I can understand if you're trying to do that in the middle of the competition while the judges are preparing for the next round. I can understand why they can be short with you, because they're having to get ready for the next round. Okay, like, I get it. But when there's enough time where you can actually sit there and talk to your judges, especially if your judges have already tabulated your scores or not having any discussions on your scores, you're going to get that input. You're going to get that insight to help you become better in the competition format. Okay, it's very important. All right, that's how I look at it. It's very important to gain outside opinion, outside input to help improve yourself, because if you're not viewing how they're viewing it, you're not going to improve, because your view on yourself may be inflated. It tends to be like that. That's just how most people are. But I'm not saying that everybody is. I'm just saying some people are like that. But it always helps kind of gauge where you actually are and how you should be progressing. That's the main goal when it comes to asking those kinds of questions. And you always get, maybe during the conversation you figure out an idea that might actually work to use for your next round. Like, That's one of the things that I always try to do as well, is that if you can actually get that information in between rounds, you can take that information to your next round and use it in your next round to possibly even get a better score. Like that's, you understand how important I'm trying to convey this. That's the goal. All right, so one final part that I want to cover on sportsmanship, because when it comes to certain people having just really bad attitudes and just having bad sportsmanship, I know a lot of people are going to ask, what do they do when they're dealing with somebody like that? Okay, I understand. I can certainly tell you a lovely little story when I went to a very simple pre-release and we were playing, and I was playing in the last round and I won. And the person got very, very upset to the point where he took the cards that he got through the pre-release and ripped them all up in front of everybody and stormed out of the store. Okay. I have seen some crazy things people have done. I've seen people throw soda cans up at the roof when they lost. I've seen any type of reaction that you can think of when it comes to losing in a bad manner. All right, I've seen it. I've seen some crazy stuff, people, like, believe me. Alright, so first things first, when it comes to somebody who's having really bad sportsmanship and they're kind of escalating the situation on their own and making it very tense for you, first things first, do not escalate the situation. Don't sit there and sass back at them. Don't stoke the flames. Okay, that's the main part right here. Do not stoke the flames. They're already in an animated state. You don't want to make it any worse. All right. So one of those things I always tell people is to distance yourself. You just say, I do apologize for how you feel about this matter. I really do hope that your night improves, and simply walk away. Okay. It's just sometimes some people just need to cool off, and you just, give them the space to let them cool off. Now, I totally understand where a lot of people are going to come from when they tell me, oh, there's always been this one guy that lost me and had to meander around me and just keep bringing it up over and over again. I totally know how that feels too, because I've been through that when it came to Super Smash Brothers. I've been through that when it came to Magic the Gathering. Like, I had some dude say, I can't believe I lost to some scrub with some jank deck in states. Like, I've had that. Like, trust me, I know how it feels. I will certainly tell you this though. If that is happening, there's a very, very simple thing you can do. Go to the tournament organizers. Go to your judges and tell them that this person is being a little belligerent. Okay, it's one of these things that I've experienced, especially in Magic the Gathering, where there is this stigma about going to the judges and having judge calls and, calling out for a judge in any capacity. Or it's like this giant stigma where it's like, oh, you're so bad, people say it's like, oh, he doesn't really know how he's doing in an REL environment. Which, if you don't know what REL means, it means rules enforcement level. Okay, and that's usually tournaments. Even FNM is a level of REL, but not to the same extent as like a Grand Prix or the Pro Tour or the World Championship. That's different stuff. But please understand that's what I'm talking about. Okay, when it comes to these competitions, there are people there who work there who are supposed to handle things like that. They have actually most likely had a discussion before the competition event even started about how to handle these types of people. Okay, so if you're dealing with somebody like that and are kind of harassing you during the tournament because of whatever the situation may be, go tell a judge, go talk to a tournament organizer to let them keep the peace. Like, that's their job. They're being paid to do that, for crying out loud, And they also want what you want, an awesome, fun, competitive scene. Okay, they also want to have an awesome night. They want a great event where everyone goes home happy, everybody had a good time, and everybody gets to walk away with something, whether they won or lost. The memories are there type deal. But there's going to be people like that where they're going to cause that kind of problem. And my best suggestion is, one, to distance yourself. Do not escalate the situation. And if they keep persisting on you, go tell somebody. Go tell a judge. Go tell the tournament organizer so they can remove this person, disqualify this person if necessary. But it is what it is when it comes to certain people. But there are people there to help you when you need to. Okay? That's it. that's all for my episode. I don't think I really need to go any further. Be respectful, be professional, and be extremely courteous to your other competitors. Do not take your losses personally. When you do lose, try to discuss with your opponent on the highlights of the match. Try to talk to your judges to engage how they feel about certain things and see if they know for you to improve. They'll probably give you short answers, and that allows you to actually discuss that more with other people to help you break it down a little bit more, things like that. And of course, when you're dealing with somebody who's having really bad sportsmanship, do not escalate the situation. Distance yourself if you need to, and if this person keeps persisting, just talk to a judge or tournament organizer to have them removed. It is really not that hard, and do not be afraid to tell a judge, okay? It's one of the things that kind of actually drives me up the wall when it comes to judge calls, especially in Magic the Gathering. Like, oh my god, it drives me up the wall. People just get so irate that you're calling on a judge. First of all, here's the thing about judges. Judges are there to moderate the event. They're there to make it go smoothly. Now, granted, they're also judging on your ability as a glover, but they're mainly there to make the job in the event go much smoother. Okay, so do not be afraid to do that. Alright, but that is pretty much all for my episode. I do like to thank you if you made it to this part of the episode, that you listened all the way through. I really hope you learned something very interesting from my experience in the competitive environment, whether it be Magic the Gathering or Super Smash Brothers. And yes, it does translate into gloving, as much as people want to sit here and try to disagree with me because they're two completely different things. Well, yeah, so is dancing and games. Like, come on. Alright, so if you have any questions that I have not covered in this episode, you do have various outlets you can hit me up at. Of course, I do have a gloving page, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. I do have an email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. And of course, you can also find me on Reddit under the username muttonchopguy. And lastly, I do have a Discord server that you can join for absolutely free. It is no cost to you. All you get to do is come up there and play around and talk to me about stuff. I try to use it as much as possible. I do put my questions on there, and I do get quite a bit of responses. It's actually really nice to see those. So thank you to everybody who has liked the page. I know I'm like 112 or 113 last time I checked. Or 212, excuse me. I'm past the 200 mark. I'm well past the 200 mark. I will say that. So thank you to everybody who's been listening in. I do highly, highly appreciate it. It means the world to me that you guys are actually at least taking what I have to say into account and applying that if necessary. But yes, that is pretty much all for my time here. Thank you so much for you guys for listening. I love you guys. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 The Buke, and I'll see you guys all next week.